Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. This episode brought to you by Roll20.net, the world's largest virtual tabletop. Check them out today at Roll20.net. If you have a suggestion for the show, a suggestion for a topic, have a comment, we love feedback, send it to savagedaddy@gmail.com. Attention, Dustin, the intern. And then also follow us. You can follow us on the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels, all at ZSWGM Podcast. And subscribe to us on iTunes, Savage Worlds Game Master Podcast. Tonight's discussion, GM burnout. Oh my God. How do you deal with GM burnout? Are you burnout and you don't know it? What are some symptoms? What are some cures? What can you do? Because every time, every once in a while, you just get sick and tired and sick and tired. So let's go ahead.
I just want to say one thing before we go on. It's better to burn out than fade away.
Awesome. That from our first panelist tonight, Pundit. Some call him Jib. Also joining the discussion, Dustin, the Savage Intern, and Dave, the No You Don't Get a Cookie Rule Maven Scott.
Greetings and salutations.
Good evening. Oh, come on, David. Somebody had to say it.
Well,
I didn't know who's going to jump on the grenade first.
I will comment in direct response to Jib's comment. You got to rise up, gather round, rock this place to the ground, rock on. So one of the best, the original Highlander movie, by the way, too.
You know, the odd thing about the Highlander series is it goes from Highlander 1 directly to Highlander 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
like they didn't know how to number them or something.
I know, right? It's like Star Wars. We have 4, 5, 6.
It's not a bad acid trip in between them, that's all.
Yeah. There was a director, there was a story writer and screenwriter who was burnt out. Bringing it back to topic.
Right.
What we're doing?
Between.
Wait, we're doing more than one campaign? I don't know.
I'm gonna let my buddy Steve guest GM next week because I can't make it. You come back, you're like, what the hell is the planet Zeiss? You read the wrong book, Steve.
That Sean Connery's a lying son of a bitch. All right.
So I guess my question to you guys to start this off is, how do you recognize when you're burned out before it becomes like full burnout?
Right.
Like, have you learned your own warning signs?
For me, one of the things is, here's a good warning sign for a GM should be that you're showing up and you're not having fun. If it feels like a chore every week to show up and run the game, you're burnt out. You need a break.
If it feels like a chore to prep for the game.
That too. I think there's also some self-deprecation that kind of goes into it, like, shit, I don't have any good ideas anymore. We've already burned through the best ideas I've got. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. It's a good indication that you may be experiencing burnout, that you think you've already used all your best ideas for plot hooks. I would say the other thing too, a good indication that you're burnout is you're going through lather, rinse, repeat type game sessions where it's like, okay, here we go. We're 5 minutes into it. Of course, there's going to be a minor combat because, well, shit, it's happened in the last 3 games we played. All right, a minor combat that really is leading into a plot point that follows to a mystery that follows to this, and you're running the same game week in and week out, and you've taken a cookie cutter approach to it. You're not trying to innovate in the game. You're not trying to take it in a new and interesting direction. You've just gotten into the grind of, okay, here's the obligatory combat with the extras. Okay, here's the obligatory mystery speech from the big bad guy, followed by the obligatory cliffhanger. Oh, and okay, we'll meet next week.
Yeah,
I think it's a good indication that you've fallen into a rut, and you're just painting by numbers, so to speak.
Well, to reference a conversation I actually had earlier today on Facebook, is when you get into a point where there's a pattern in the game, it's time to throw a curveball anyway. If every time you throw a specific configuration of enemies at your players, they automatically run away or surrender, or, oh, look, it's this thing. So they go, okay, you go on hold, you go on hold, you go on hold. And we do that same thing we did last week. As soon as you get that, it's time to throw something different out there. But when you're constantly getting that, I think that's where you get to what Jared's talking about, where it's not just, hey, I need to throw something different because the players are starting to react the same way. It's literally, I'm running the exact same fucking thing I did last week and the week before and the week before. At that point, I would rather run a one-shot than run my campaign just to break up the monotony.
Yeah.
Right.
And totally.
Alec Muzzy brings up a good point. I'll go ahead and read that one off. Thank you, Dustin. Alec Muzzy says, when you stop using voices, accents for your NPCs, you're reaching burnout. Yeah, if that's a typical thing that you do and you're not doing it, yeah.
Okay. That I'll agree with. If it's something you typically
do it. Yeah, if you do it.
If it's not something you typically do, then no, it's not an indicator.
Right. I mean, if you're used to your general MO is, well, wait, what's the barkeep's name? And you're just used to saying, oh, he's Hagrid the Bold. And it just kind of comes out and you already have a concept for him. And then you get a week down the road to meet another bartender. I don't fucking know, Bob. It doesn't matter. His name's Bob.
Yeah, the part of it that I think stands out the worst in a moment like that is because you're starting to have those moments where he's Bob. You've just telegraphed it's an unimportant character to your players. Mm-hmm. That's taken the fun out of the game for not just you, but everyone.
Right. I would say if you're not narrating combats, anytime a GM pretty much stops narrating and everything out of their mouth becomes, okay, initiative roll. Okay. Raise, roll your attack damage. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do that. And does it narrate anything? Good indication your GM's burnt out. Just like, look, I just don't have it in me to do the Florid and Lord. I'm just not feeling it.
I agree with that, but I'm going to put a caveat on it. If it's one session, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If it's become a pattern, then yes.
Well, I think that's the crux of all this, is as soon as any of these things become a pattern behavior, that's a red flag that something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And I mean, for me at least, burnout comes from two different things. One is just simply, I'm kind of done GMing right now. I've done nothing but run game after game after game after game after game, and I need to be on the other side of the GM screen for a little bit. I need to not be the one that's responsible for balancing the fucking universe in the air at the same time. At the table, I need to just sit down and relax. But the other side of it is genre or setting burnout. Oh, Jesus. We've been doing fucking zombies for a year. Can we please do anything but horror? It's not even the zombies. It's all of horror needs to go away. And we need to go do fucking comedy or, murder mystery. Don't fucking care. Something completely different, just because anything of that type. You go from zombies to vampires, it's still going to be part of that burnout for you because you're just done dealing with horror, or you're done dealing with sci-fi, or you're done dealing with anything fantasy, which, once you hit that point, the longer you push past that burnout point, the longer you're going to have to play something else when you do start to recover, or just not even role play. to get that out of your system and be willing to go back to do that again.
Well, and I think a classic example of this too is Dave. I'm hearing myself from somebody's mic. Something Dave experienced was with East Texas University. Fell in love with that setting when the Kickstarter came out, like full on, just, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. I can't wait. Okay, let me run it for. Well, that was disappointing. Okay, maybe it was the party. Maybe I just need to mix up the party. We'll try running again. That's disappointing. That didn't work out the way. Okay, all right, we're gonna restart this and try it a different way. You fucking assholes are ruining this game. And sometimes burnout comes. The players can be a source of your burnout. They're doing things by rote. They're not, it's the person. They're not trying to stretch themselves as a role player. It's like, no, of course you're playing the charismatic, hot guy because, well, let me review the last 5 different genres we played where you played the fast-talking, charismatic face man. It gets to a point where it's like, okay, I know what to expect from the players. There's no mystery. I'm just not enjoying this. And sometimes your players are a source of that GM burnout and frustration.
Player X is going to show up with a D12 in fighting and a D10 in strength, and player Y is going to show up with a D12 in persuasion and a 4 charisma. You've got that thing where you just know what the players are going to bring to the table, no matter what you lay down. So there can be a stylistic issue, though, as well, where maybe you just need different players, or you need to tell the players, hey, we've been doing nothing but kind of Monty Python shtick role-playing for the last 6 months. I want to do gritty, realistic, tight-laced, serious role play. Or maybe you've been doing too much gritty, tight-laced, serious role play, and you need a game or two of shtick just to reset that.
I totally agree with that. I think the first thing, recognize when you're burning out, which Jared mentioned a little bit ago. So you have to have the self-awareness to know when you're just not feeling it, and you have to be honest with yourself about that. And you have to be honest with your players about that. Then I think it's important to try to find what it is that is burning you out. Is it, is it genre? Is it thematic? Is it we're just doing the same thing over and over again? Or is it just gaming entirely? Is it GMing entirely? And what you're going to want to do about that's going to differ depending on what the answer to that question is.
Right. And, as a GM, sometimes you're going to have a bad day of just life. I mean, you could just, oh, crap, my company's offering like all kinds of unlimited overtime. Maybe I should, wouldn't hurt to take advantage at this point. And then you're like, oh, God, I don't have any energy to prep for Friday night's game. And we've had absences due to other people's schedule of life. What's the point? Now it's complicated it, right? And this is, and I'm speaking directly about a Friday night game session that I've been trying to run and get together. And the last 2 have been on me. It's just,
We've missed
6 sessions in a
row, 6 or 8 in a row. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a sign that the whole thing has become so spiderwebbed for different reasons for different people.
Right.
That's a reset back to 0, hold a session 0, get the everybody back in and reinvigorate the group and go a different direction kind of a moment. But I think there's an aspect of burnout that is just, Jesus, I'm so fucking done because, and being able to say because and actually lay it out is a boon. So many times you're going to hit that point and not know. You can't say because X. And that, I think, is something that you have to be willing to accept. Like with the ETU thing, for the longest time, I thought I could identify what was wrong. I finally just had to go, I don't fucking know. I tried multiple different things that I thought were going to correct it because it was the wrong tone or the wrong group of players or the wrong night, or I was doing something incorrect in the way I was presenting it. So I rearranged some different things. And I couldn't identify that thing that made it wrong. So I've just gone away from it, and I'll come back to it later on. Hopefully fresh eyes will help, but sometimes you just have to identify, I can't figure out what the reason for my burnout is, but it's time to walk away, do something else for a bit, and come back.
Right. Well, I think you can have, like, and what we were just talking about too, you can have a loss of momentum can be a source of burnout, where it's like, okay, we had 3 great sessions at the beginning of this game, and then we had to take a week off. Oh, then only 1 player can make it, so we went ahead and just said, okay, well, 2 of the 5 can make it. Can I come up with a story that I don't know? And you get this thing where you're getting some good momentum going forward, and the inertia is carrying you, and it's making prep fun. You're looking forward to Friday night, and then just a couple of schedule changes can make you stop and go, well, wait a minute. Now I've completely lost. Not only have I completely lost that inertia and momentum, crap. Now I've got all this extra heavy lifting I have to do to kind of make this all make sense with everything that's happened. Oh God, I don't know what to do. So the easiest thing is to go, hey, sorry guys, I'm gonna reschedule this week's game. It's really just the easiest thing to do.
Well, and I mean, not to beat that particular dead horse too much, and not to poke at you as the cause for it, but quite honestly, if we look at like that Friday night as an example, the way you are, something else to look at is player actions within the game can suddenly lead to immediate burnout by a GM, not because the player is becoming too cliche or anything like that, but the player has suddenly taken that game in a direction you had no intention of ever role-playing that subject matter. You might have a player who suddenly decides, hey, we're going to go do X that has nothing to do with anything you plan. And one of the examples for that would be, one of the things that I know one of the characters was pushing toward in the Friday game was, well, let's all get on a boat and go out to sea. Well, fuck, that's completely not any of the stuff that setting's written to handle what's going to happen next, other than a quantum ogre that forces them back to land in some regard. Hey, what do you do to run? Now all of a sudden the game has changed, and it was going to be zombie survival through a big city, and suddenly it's going to be just survival in the open ocean.
Yeah, and it's going to become part pirate. Is really what it would break down.
Well, you're running a standard dungeon crawl style fantasy game, and all of a sudden your players go, well, we're just going to turn left and keep going and see what's in the next town. Or we're going to start a border war between these two kingdoms. And maybe
we're just going to kill everybody in the town because no witnesses.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what the choice is the players have made, but they have gone not just, left at the fork, but they've fucking torn the fork down and paved the new path that not only are you not prepared for, but kind of goes against what the game was supposed to have been about in the first place. Again, you sat down to do a dungeon delve, and they're going to go cross country. You sat down to do, zombies in a city, and they go out to sea, or whatever the complete other direction that the players choose to go in.
You bring up some interesting points there, Dave, and you too, Jared. I think GMs at the very beginning have to build on a foundation, and they have to understand that, one, you are going to suffer group atrophy. That's going to be a basic personality flaw of a lot of people. Two of them both of these are personality flaws from exact opposite ends. One is that desire to avoid confrontation. So you'll have a lot of players that suddenly everything will come up, and one day they'll just be gone. You'll start out, everybody will be so excited. You'll have like 8 people that want to play, and then some days it'll just drop down to like 3 and maybe 2. And that happens. And at the beginning, I think a GM, like, you have to prepare for that. You have to prepare and understand that you will have games where people's characters become NPCs or people will just not be there. And the exact opposite end is you will have those contrarians who thrive on contract, who like cut it up and just snort conflict. And they will do everything to create a conflict because they enjoy it. Those two ends of the spectrum. And as a GM, as like the middle ground, a lot of GMs don't understand trying to think in both extremes at the same time. You get stretched. And that, I think, is one of the things that really leads to such burnout, is the stretching and the switching between the two different mindsets, because gaming is social. You go from high to low, from near to far, and the GM does it more than anybody because he has to be like 7 people a night.
Well, it's a good point. And I think the other thing too is, and I think you hit on something integral about role playing and game mastering. It's social. Your players have a big influence on how you. And the other thing too is, all GMs, you don't take on the mantle of being a game master and going, no, I will accept responsibility for everything in this world. I will have a name for everybody. I will have a voice for everybody. I will have a character background for everybody. I will know what's going on in this world. I will narrate what you see. And there's a certain element to the GM of sitting there and being a performer. And as a performer, you need the adulation of the audience to kind of keep you up and going. And a lot of times that can just be the group that you have. They may be having fun, but they're not going, oh, that was awesome. And you're looking for a little bit of a standing ovation every once in a while. You put all this effort into it, and you feel like looking at everybody going, are you not entertained? What?
Yeah, you have that moment for the gladiator where you just want to throw your sword at the rest of the party and go, the fuck, guys? I just poured my heart and soul into this. It took 5 weeks to set this goddamn coup de grace up, and no one reacts.
Nothing. Nothing. Seriously, nothing.
Alec Lizzie throws out the idea: rotate GMs and genres every 4 to 6 months. And it's not that I dislike the idea. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. But I think setting a structure, it's every 4 to 6 months, doesn't help. Because what we're talking about isn't something that's going to be time sensitive all the time. Yeah, for one GM, it might purely be, I can only do the same thing for, 4 months in a row, and then I've got to change. You might have a GM who's that way. But I think, at least for most of us, it's going to be stuff that happens at the table or in real life around us that's going to lead to that burnout, more so than just we've played the same thing too long and it's gotten long in the tooth and needs to move on. That said, rotating GMs is a great solution because it does give whoever's hit burnout, it does hit that point of going, I can play instead of actually run.
Right. There's that breather of if you're fortunate enough to have somebody who's a competent GM in your player group. Absolutely. It's a great thing to go, hey, you know what? Just coming clean and going, look, I'm pulled in 16 different directions by life. I'm a little burnt out in what we're doing right now. I need just 1-2 weeks where I have no responsibility but to show up and play. Where I don't need to think about prepping for a game. I don't need to worry about if this is going to be a good game or not. I just need to show up, unplug, and not be responsible for anything other than showing up and playing. And if you have that, it doesn't have to be in the same campaign world. I would say we've been talking kind of about how to identify GM burnout, what the cause of it is. I think a really good remedy, since we're kind of starting to transition in that part of the conversation, is play a one-shot. Just pick up a one-sheet from the penalty thing, something already laid out where you don't have to put any thought into it, and just pick it up and run with it. Play with it. Actually, play Cards Against Humanity or switch to Fiasco. Go play a different system. I mean, I know we love Savage Worlds. Yay, Savage Worlds. That's all we talk about. But, hey, challenge yourself. Pick up another system and play it.
Well, taking that a step further, if you think you don't like other systems, take your core group and run that system and see if, maybe you just had a bad playthrough of it the last time. You need a cure for the burnout. Let somebody in your group who maybe isn't a Savage Worlds GM, but is a great Pathfinder GM or a great Fate GM or a great GM of some system you've never even played before, let them run. And the best part about a one-shot, most one-shots are not necessarily meant to be resolved in a single 4-hour sitting. We talk a lot about this idea of the one-shot. A good number of them are not written con format where you're going to absolutely get it done in 4 hours in a single playthrough. It's meant to be, here's the whole story self-contained. It might take 2, maybe even 3 sessions to get through it, but it's one semi-adventure plot. Bam, run it, done. And once you're done with that, you might be ready to go back to what you were doing, or you might be ready for a new session 0 to play Savage Worlds and go a different direction.
Right. Or even, if you're used to doing your own original kind of campaign stuff, go grab a copy of Slipstream, something that's crazy gonzo, bubble helmet sci-fi, where there's actually gravity and you can breathe and talk in the vacuum of space. Go grab that and play the Savage Tales that are in the book. I mean, almost any setting from Pinnacle or licensee has Savage Tales in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, go expose yourself to a different iteration of the game. I mean, could I run a Flash Gordon-esque kind of thing? Yeah. I'd probably have to come up with some concepts to do it and maybe some setting rules to add to it to give it that flavor. But there's already a cookie cutter one off the shelf. Just go grab it. That serves that John, just set it down and play it.
And I think that's an apt thing. A good number of us who've been playing this game for 10 years do a lot of creation on our own. Sit back and let yourself take that break of running something that somebody else wrote. Stop saying I never run pre-mades. No, pick up a fucking set of pre-mades and run them for a little bit. Because it takes a weight off your shoulders that might be the cure to that burnout. Now, right. Ruben says something interesting here. And it's a direct quote from Ruben. I want to read it entirely. A remedy seen only once, play NPCs. There is usually little objection to the GM running a well-thought-out NPC, especially if it fills a hole in the party composition, already well-crafted by the GM.
No. No GMPC. No.
The GMPC is the worst thing to do. If you need to play as a GM, find somebody else's game and go play. Fucking inserting a GMPC, no matter how well you do it, you can be fucking excellent. It is still a Mary Sue in the eyes of the other players at the table.
Right. That's one of the big problems is as the GM, players, I think all the time players think, yes, I have the greatest idea ever. And the GM is like, that doesn't really seem like the greatest idea ever. Maybe it's a second to penicillin, but still.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Savage Worlds already kind of preloads this problem and says, okay, you love to role play the NPC in your game. Great. You're not in charge of the NPC actions. The players are. So if they become part of your party, they're allied extras, and the group controls their actions and the GM controls their role play. So
that's a good way to do it. Yeah.
If I ever have, we had it in the last iteration of the zombie game with the old caretaker. I kind of role played him out at the beginning. The second he became a party ally and joined what they were doing, hands off. You guys tell me what Earl does. I'll role play him.
And the interesting thing is, if your group's not used to that, the allied extra will stand off to the side and do jack because everyone forgets that they can dictate an action for the allied extra.
In my Deadlands game that we're running right now, every player there's a pool of allied extras that they can take with them, and that's what we've been doing. Is we'll switch on it. Like I'll interject a role play from one of the allied extras just to add a little bit of flavor. But at the beginning of the session, I'll say, okay, who has who as an extra? And one of the things that happens is if the player dies, they can pick up their allied extra or one of the allied extras as a player character. Last session, we were at a very specific point, and the players had to roll a guts check because they were in the ghoul wardens and the ghouls were coming out. I kid you not, it is the exact scenario from the Horror Companion. But they're in there, and the huckster rolls, and he gets snake eyes. He critically fails. And then he's like, well, I have to roll on the table and see what happens. And he natural 20s it. So he gets a heart attack. And it was the worst luck I'd ever seen in my life.
That's fucking awesome.
It was awesome, but also kind of terrible awesome. It's like, that is a really beautiful car accident. So his allied extra picks him up and drags him to safety. And one of the other players is like, well, let him run with my allied extra. Let him do the dice and role play for them. And that's what he did. It's like, we had a session, and because of that, the guy didn't have to just sit there and watch everybody narrate what happened. I thought it turned out well, but that had to be the worst luck I'd ever seen. Well,
and along those lines, I always try to keep a couple of pre-made characters sitting, tucked away in a book somewhere or in the sidebar of Fantasy Grounds or Roll20, so that if a player dies, I can go, hey, quick, here's a couple of record sheets, pick one that you can get right back in the action within 5 minutes, or feel free to just make your own character and we'll introduce you as soon as we can. But, keeping characters kind of off to one side that are easy to bring into the action is great. But an interesting aspect of it goes back to, this idea of the GM role-playing that character. Just anytime you do it, it's not about what you do. It's about that perception. And especially if you're doing it to give yourself the thrill of playing, you're going to play that character in a very, I don't want to say self-centered manner, but you're going to certainly be centered on your own enjoyment as a player in playing that character. And it's going to give that perception of, oh, well, of course the Mary Sue gets to get the combat attack at the early part of the round and do the massive damage to the big boss. We've only been fighting for 6 months to get here, but yes, your NPC gets to come in and save everybody. It takes some of that emotional thing out for the players. So I just don't think it answers it. I also don't think, as an answer to the burnout issue, I don't think it works. I don't think that's going to give you what you need to get out of your burnout. That said, another solution to burnout is introduce a new twist to the world. Maybe you've been running the same, set of adventures, and there's this one kind of shadowy big bad off to one side that the players have consistently gone up against to their plots. Introduce a second big bad that's working perpendicular to the other big bad, and then have the players meet on the battlefield with henchmen of both who are fighting each other for the same MacGuffin. And now you've introduced a whole new plot line you can have the players chase after for a while that might change that game up enough to get you reinvigorated back into it. They've been chasing one big bad's plot. Now you give them a second plot to track. You can step away from something that's become boring and come back to it a couple weeks later, all within the same game. by just introducing another tangent for the players to go down for a while.
Right. So a good example of that, let's say you're playing Deadlands, and you kind of gotten with all the fear levels. Okay, they've encountered the Harrowed. We've done witches. We've done. Oh, you know what? Alien invasion. Just out of nowhere, boom! Alien invasion. What? Oh yeah, right in the middle of all this shit that's going on. No, aliens are invading.
That, or they got invited to a true Old West town where you're not running any kind of a horror subplot. It's just a straight up Gunsmoke Western where there's a poker tournament or a dueling tournament to see who's the fastest gun in the West, and all the major gunslingers are in town. Or you pick one of these epic storylines and just drop it like a bomb in the middle of your existing campaign, so that it blows apart whatever that is causing you burnout within the game.
Right, just breaks the monotony of what you're doing. I'd say another thing you could do too to kind of help you combat GM burnout. Start turning over narrative control to the players. There is this, and then leaving them with NPC extras that are now their allied extras. That you just sort of like, okay, well, you fought this party, they surrendered. Okay, all these mooks, all these 8 mooks are now are now captive. You control them. I no longer control them. There you go. And then ask them to narrate. Walking in the town, what does it look like? What? Yeah, describe this town you just entered.
No, Jared. I want you to tell me the name of the bartender.
Nope. Hey, GM, what's the bartender's name? I don't know. What is the bartender's name? Describe him for me. What does he look like? Do you want there to be clouds to the east? To quote a show situation. There can be a lot that you can relieve a lot of the pressure and feeling that it's work at the table by just freely handing over narrative control to the players. And don't be afraid to do that, because they will shake things up in ways that you had not anticipated. So they can bring in a fresh wave of something, and it could be the best thing that's been added to the story in sessions, just because you're asking for somebody else's input.
But be aware that it might also just turn it into a deeper train wreck at that point. You turn narrative control over to them, and they give you the deer in the headlights, or they take it in just the most god-awful direction where you're like, yeah, no, 2 sessions later, I'm tying a bow on this motherfucker because I'm done.
Right. So
they just come up with more plot hooks is all they do.
Yeah, we're playing Deadlands, and we've established the tone. Okay, what's the sheriff's name? Dizzy Gillespie Gabojibajan. No, that's not his name. Try again. That doesn't fit the tone of what we're playing. Come on. Yeah. Stop throwing a monkey. Put that here. Here's your monkey wrench. Go ahead, put it back in your pocket. Try again.
So that kind of reminds me of a story that you mentioned. That I was running a Deadlands Noir game for some friends, and it was sort of a very impromptu one that became it became like its own campaign afterwards. But somebody was killing off members of the mob, the Black Hand, and they were like, well, what's this guy's name? What's that guy's name? I said, well, this guy's Tony A, this guy's Tony B, this guy's Tony C, Tony D, Tony E. It's like, why is every guy named Tony? I was like, because they're the mob. They're Italian. Please address all hate mail to Dustin at Savage GM. But no,
the views expressed by Dustin the Intern are not necessarily the views of Savage Daddy, Dave the Rules Baby Scott, or the Savage Worlds GM podcast. Please send direct all mail to this. We do not support racism in any way, shape, or form on this podcast. Thank you for viewing, and have a nice day.
We love you. What I'm saying is, it became a running gag. Like, they would run across people, and they'd be like, well, what's this guy's name? And they'd say, let me guess, it's Tony. I'm like, no, where would you get that from?
Well, I'm gonna say here's another cure for GM burnout. Polo George Costanza. Anybody who's ever watched the Seinfeld show from the 90s, do the opposite. When it's just not working for you anymore, Jerry, it's just not working. Well, what did you do? I did this. Did you think about doing the opposite? If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite must be right. So do the opposite. Try that. When you would normally run a combat, don't.
Right.
Don't run a combat at all. See what happens.
Yeah, run a social conflict. Run, a dramatic task. Run an interlude. It doesn't matter. Pick something completely different to do instead of what your initial gut reaction is. It's
going to do two things too. It's not only going to shake up your game from the standpoint of breaking a rut for you, it's going to confuse the living shit out of your players who have figured out what your pattern is to go, wait a minute, we don't really have a combat. What's going on? Ooh, there must be something more to hear than what's normally going on, and they will start to come up with all kinds of ideas and plot hooks and start to think out loud. Feel free to just sort of embrace all that.
Every word that spills out of your players' mouths at the table when they start talking about the things they're afraid you're doing are fucking gold. Those things are amazing. Just lift that shit up, tuck it in a pocket, and save it for a week.
Yeah, like for example, if you're in the habit of introducing characters in black who are mean and encounter the party, and then a fight breaks out, when you get to the point where the fight would break out, have your big badass go, hey, sorry, I don't want no trouble.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to start nothing. Sorry. I misspoke. My bad. All on me. Sorry, guys. And just have a back away. And watch this dumbfounded look on your player's face of like, wait a minute. What the hell's going on?
And if none of that works, jump up on the table and scream serenity now.
Well, and we've shared this from the Dead End, and here's the example of that from the Dead End story we've had before, and I won't go into too much detail for anybody who's watched it, but it's that John Stamos moment. It's that one thing that they've been, everybody they met had tried to take all their shit, kill them. They've been trapped by zombies. It was like the GM wants us dead. And then out of nowhere, oh no, here's this idyllic safe haven. And the player was like, oh, fuck no. They have all kinds of imaginings. Oh, he's some kind of serial killer cannibal. Oh, what the fuck? No. And it kind of reinvigorated the game a little bit.
Ruben asks, feeling constrained by the system can be a burnout symptom. And while I can understand what he's saying, I know for me that's typically not it. Simply because I feel like with Savage Worlds, the system gets out of the way enough that I don't feel hemmed in at any point by Savage Worlds. Maybe vehicle rules, but even then, I've played enough role-playing games over the years that I live by, unwritten rule number 1, which is doesn't matter what's written in that book, the GM's always right. So I'll just throw out, this is the way we're running this tonight, or from this point forward, all vehicles have a pace instead of a top speed and acceleration, or all vehicles have a strength rating, and that's how much damage they do, just like they had a strength die or whatever. It doesn't matter what you make as a change to the rules. I think enough of us have played long enough that we don't have that burnout where we feel constrained by the system, but it's certainly something that I could see happening to somebody who doesn't have the experience to go, oh, well, fuck yeah, I'm just throwing that rule out because it doesn't work for my players.
I think another part of that too is the burnout could be not using all the rules either. If your typical 1-2 punch in combat is always fire at range to soften them up, then move in, try changing your tactics. Try explore a brand new rule in the game and use it. Use grappling, use push. Go prone. Start using powers if you're not a big power guy. Start introducing aspects of the game and rules that you have to this point previously not encountered, explored, or used. It does, for nothing else, it'll beef up your chops on the rule system. Number one. Number two, it'll help you kind of stretch and grow a little bit as a GM. And I think probably one of the biggest aha moments that all Savage Worlds GMs go through, especially if they come from another system, is, hey, wait a minute. I'm looking at a chart here that's got 20 different pistols. The stats are almost all identical. Oh, shit, it's all about trappings. Fighting doesn't matter if it's this kind of fighting or kung fu fighting or picking it. It's all, oh my God, it's all fighting. And just kind of having that epiphany of trappings completely frees up your application and interpretation of Savage Worlds game rules as well. To where it's interesting and fun to try new things. Where you start to think, if a player goes, well, I'm going to grab this wolf by the tail and start swinging it in a circle and then let go, you don't go, oh, fuck. What rule do I use for that? You realize immediately, oh, that's just a push. That's just a trapping for push. It has the same effect. Oh, okay.
I think along those lines, the best thing you can do if constrained by the system is your burnout type is recruit a player that will challenge you by doing off-the-wall stuff that's all throughout the book. You know, whether it's the player that's going to try to push your big bad out of a door of a helicopter or grab a wolf and do a hammer throw, or if it's the player who wants to engage in a social conflict in the courtroom to get his character off for murder. It doesn't matter what it is, but recruit players that know the rules well enough to use them at the table so that player will constantly challenge you. With that said, the trappings idea that you're talking about, Jared, I think is an interesting aspect, especially when we look at Alex's comment here about having the players tell an interlude at the start of play, and that becomes the basis for that night's game. And he went on to explain to kind of explain that out. He says, you know, player tells an interlude of love. The love interest shows up as the villain in that game, or the love interest needs to be rescued. That's an interesting aspect of trappings, is that, you know, the interlude doesn't have to be a story of something that happened. It can, you know, you can lay that card out there and have the player give you a plot hook based on, you know, whatever the category of that particular interlude card is, based on their character's history, and then run that exact plot hook that night. So, I mean, there are ways to do it, but I think a lot of these all stem from this idea of, how do I get through one more session? I think, at least for me, being able to identify, wait, I've hit burnout, put the game on pause, hiatus, cancel it, whatever, and then find something else to do or have the other GM take over is far more effective. Because, again, if I'm pushing myself to play, it just makes the situation worse no matter how much I do in other directions.
Right.
And that's a personal bias thing. I know that.
Right. Well, I think too that you can rediscover what comes. Some of the things that we're suggesting here, just in the last few minutes of conversation, can kind of help you rediscover your love of the game. I think is kind of what we're putting forward. Is like, you know, try this, try that, consider this, consider that. Are ways to kind of help you kind of rediscover the fun in what you were doing originally. But I agree with you. If you reach the point where, you know, your game night starts at 7 on Thursdays and you've been meeting weekly, and it gets to be 5 o'clock, and you're like, I just, God damn it, I had nothing. I don't feel like doing this anymore. It's the same kind of burnout, you know, it's the same kind of burnout you can experience in a job. It's like, seriously, if I have to do this with one more time today, I'm going to lose it. It's the reason why you get 2 days off a week if you work a 9-to-5 job. No, go do something else. Do not show up here for 2 days. You kind of need that to refresh and revitalize. There's this certain logic to, we don't need you working 18-hour days, even if you love this job. We don't want you here 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. for 5 months. Stop it. Go do something. Leave. Take time off. It's all good.
The quality of your work would start to fall off too, and your boss needs you to be working at a higher level. That's why they give you time off. They want to make more money off of you. It's reality. It's adulthood, folks.
I mean, we've all had those jobs too. We've all had those jobs as adults, right? Where, oh God, the money's really good, the benefits are really good, but oh God, you pull up the parking lot and you sit there for
more time.
Yeah, you pull up in the parking lot, you sit there for 2 minutes and go, I don't want to do this anymore. I really don't. What am I doing? I don't want to do this anymore.
You're sitting in your car in the parking lot going, Jesus, do I have any time off I can take? Can I get out for a day?
Right.
Yeah.
Or you look at the alarm clock when it goes off and goes, maybe I should call in sick today. Do I have sick time?
It's like 3 more months before I can take my vacation.
It's all that. People experience burnout even, in life. You experience burnout with a hobby, something you love. Sometimes you just need to walk away from it. And there's nothing wrong. And here's the thing I would say too. Players of your GM, if your GM is experiencing burnout and you are seeing it, feel free to go, hey, you seem like you're a little stressed out. You seem like you're a little burnt out. Why don't we take a couple weeks off?
What can I do to help you? Is a great question, because the GM may just need you asking that question for them to realize there's an issue. They may not have put 2 and 2 together that they're starting to, regret that game or phone it in, or, that you can hear in their voice that they're not having fun anymore. And that they feel like they're there because of the social, they have to show up because everyone's depending on them to run a game that night. And that can absolutely take its toll. And just you saying, hey, is there anything I can do, might be all it takes to reset that and give them some heads up that they can resolve it with.
Right. And if your GM goes, hey guys, look, I'm sorry, I need to take 2 weeks off. I'm going to go dark for 2 weeks. It has nothing to do with you guys. It has nothing to do with the game. I need a break. Respect that if your GM goes and says something like that to you.
If your GM says that, offer to take them to a movie, or
or strip club.
Strip club,
FedEx them a nice, fifth of a good scotch or bourbon,
and a bag of dicks.
Care package. A care package, yeah. A bag of dicks if you need to.
Give them a book. Something. Come on.
Send them a D20. Send them a D20 with every number filed off except 20. Do something.
Send them a set of weighted dice.
Right.
Like the really bad ones where the one side bulges when they put the weight in. So they're obviously weighted dice,
Hire somebody off DeviantArt to do an in-character caricature pic of your GM as the big bad, and send it to them so they can frame. A little bit of love to your GM every once in a while. It's not a bad thing.
One of the things that I've been doing for my for one of the games that I run, and also that was mentioned here, possibility of sharing the GM role.
The co-GM, 2GM thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
To be honest, I'm not a fan, but it's twofold. One is, when I'm the GM, I'm in control of the whole world. If I'm trying to share that with a co-GM, I don't want to have to check with them. Hey, is it okay if Big Bad X does Y, or do you have them currently in a different place doing a different thing? There's this whole idea of when you're co-GMing, unless you both think similarly enough that you literally can be on the same page at the same time all the time, you can certainly screw up what each other is thinking the rest of the world is doing outside of whatever room the players are currently interacting within in your game. The other aspect of the co-GM thing that just has never worked for me is, quite honestly, what does the co-GM actually do at the table? Unless I'm just not going to be there, that other GM is there to do what? Remind me of things that I already know, or look up a rule. A lot of the time, whatever that is can be other players to the table. You know, if you've forgotten what a rule is, you can look at somebody and go, hey, can you look this up for me? Continue running the scene, and then grab that rule from them 5 minutes later when you need it.
I depend. I mean, it kind of depends. I know there's some co-GMs where it kind of works, where one's just in charge of the storytelling, and the others, you know, putting minis together, laying out maps, tactical maps, running actual NPCs in combat, doing things, is in charge of a certain section of a world, and kind of that progressive story. I mean, I've heard tale of it. I've never seen it work in reality, though. I've never seen a situation where I've been either in a co-GM situation or been in a group that has a co-GM as a player and kind of see it worked out. Because you're right, the secondary GM just seems to be this, third wheel that just sort of sits there and twiddles their thumbs and waits to be called on to do something. Like, hey, we're low on pizza.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the flip side being, is that person also then going to run a player character for those times when they're not GMing, now they're PC, but then that you start running into what we talked about earlier about the GM PC that becomes a real issue. It runs into a lot of fuzzy areas for me that I think are enough pitfalls of GMing in general. It just doesn't seem like a workable solution for this. Again, if it works for your table, rock out your cock out, but just not going to work for me.
Yeah, for me, it's always seemed like trying to force a square hole into a round peg, just because we need to have somebody have a secondary GM. He can't play all the time, and he's got on a tight schedule, so he's going to be the co-GM when he's here. Maybe just schedule for the guy to be a reoccurring character instead of a co-GM.
It's worked out with my group. However, the only way that it ever works is if both GMs are adults and pretty much willing to let their character get their rear ends handed to them in the other GM session or even in their own session, and let their character becomes an NPC if they're running. That's right. Kind of the rule. It's no player GM. Like if we do a shift, then my guy that I was playing has to go back into town or has to go back to base, and then his character has whatever was needed. But there's a switch off. There's a tag up. It's happening in the Rifts game, and my character is a techno wizard, and his character is actually a superhero. So he's got to do some superhero duties at certain points, and I've got to do some, like, let's dig a well or something. I don't know. Fill it with PPE. Save the children.
Well, and and we kind of touched on this earlier too. I would say go and play a genre that's different from what you're playing now, and challenge yourself. Play something you've never played before. So if I were going to take my own advice, I like running horror. I like running gritty, kind of realistic stuff. If I'm experiencing burnout, it's time to run a supers game. And I don't like supers.
Or a shtick-laden fantasy.
Yeah. Or a complete comedy where it's just all, hey, you know what? Nah, we're gonna do Kung Pao Enter the Fist. That's what we're gonna do. You're gonna be a group of chosen ones who have a attack tongue, and there's gonna be some crazy Taco Bell alien pyramid scheme going on. We're gonna do something wacky, completely gonzo. But I would, stretch yourself. If you're not a fantasy guy, run some fantasy. Try slipping into that genre and giving it your best shot at running at least, 3 or 4 adventure arc, and try it out. Like I said, not a fan of supers, but I could see the fun in switching gears and running supers for 4 or 5 sessions. Do I would also say change your schedule too. If you're running weekly, go to twice a month. Hey, for the next couple months, we're going to go twice a month. So I just have more time to prepare for the game, get my head in the right space. Changing your schedule, gaming on a different night can also help too. If the rest of your party, and here's the one I'm really going to throw out. As a GM, feel free to have the transparency to go, you know what? I'm building another gaming group. You guys are awesome. You're great. I enjoy playing with you, but we know each other so well. There's no surprises happening in this game anymore. So for the next month, I'm going to go recruit 4 other players I've never played with before. And we're going to do something I've never done before. And when I come back to our regular group, I'm going to come back refreshed. I'm going to come back with new ideas, new experiences. I'm going to see how other people play the game. And it's going to be a better overall experience. Switch up your group. There, as we said, there is a social aspect to this.
Yeah.
And if you're playing with the same group of people, you may be having fun. You may be lifelong friends. That's okay. It's time to do that relationship thing. I think it's time we see other people. It's not you. It's me. We can still be friends.
Become an open gaming relationship.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch the game up to more of a poly kind of deal.
It's like the Facebook status of the group has changed to "it's complicated."
Mm-hmm, exactly. Because there is something to be said to playing with other people.
Well, and
they're going to approach the game differently. They're going to approach the hobby differently.
And I mean, not to belabor dead end, but when you first started that one, you were running parallel groups on different nights of the week, on alternating weeks, where one group met on like Fridays of one week, the other group met on Mondays of the other week, and completely divergent. It was the same game, but wow, was it not the same game at all?
Right.
Just by having that different set of people at the table. It really can make a difference.
Right. And I'll say this too. It's okay to pull the plug on something when it's not working. It's not a failure to go, this isn't working. I'm just going to go ahead and call it. We're done with this experiment. We're done. Because that's the experience I had that Dave was talking about. The Monday group wanted to play it action hero, Bruce Willis style, and I kept going, guys, it's not the tone we're going for. Now I was completely getting that tone from the Friday night group. They were a total buy-in, total on board. Maybe I should have entertained the other Monday night group differently.
Well,
I
think in that particular case, the wrong reaction was to shut the game down, but maybe shut down dead end with that group and then turn that into your Space Marines group or your 1980s action film group, or tailoring a game to the group of players you have is just as important to avoid burnout, because like we said when we were talking earlier about like ETU and other things, where if you're playing a game that's supposed to be played wacky and all your players are going ultra serious, well, you need a game that's ultra serious or you need players that are wacky. One of these two things just has to be, brought in line with the other. So depending on your situation, maybe you don't have the freedom to get another group of players. Maybe you've got to find a game that's going to work for your current group.
Well, I got to say that if that's the case, you might want to consider Roll20.net, or is it .com?
.net.
.net. Roll20.net, offering a wide variety of contemporary games with multiple groups that people all over the world may enjoy.
The Savage Worlds GM podcast would like to apologize to our sponsor, Roll20.net, for Dust of the Intern's obvious obligatory misunderstanding of the content and copy. we will be posting a public apology on the website. I'm sorry. What was that? What was that? What was that?
Please continue to send us money. Roll20. We love you.
I was sending this money. Anyway, back on track. So Savage Traveler added to the conversation a little bit here. Now I'm not going to read all three things that he said, but the interesting aspect of it for me is he says, for me, the only time I encounter GM burnout is when I play the game with too much expectations of the players, their actions, or what the session should be. And I think that's a big aspect of it.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
You're trying to achieve X, and your players are nowhere near that. It can lead to a lot of additional GM stress. You're trying to achieve this thing, and they just won't go in the fucking box.
I gotta say, that's a very valid point, and that's not just for gaming, that's for life. You really have to learn to manage expectations. And you gotta sit back and ask yourself, it's like, am I going to be entertained by this game, or am I trying to entertain the group? And when you can answer that question, it changes how you run that game.
Yeah. Well, and also, too, you end up knowing what to expect from those players as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as stressful because you kind of know, I kind of know how they're going to go. So I know they're not going to take a complete, I know they're not going to take a left turn at Albuquerque when they should have gone right. I know how these guys approach things. I would also say, too, there is some glee, and this is going to sound very Dick GM, and I'm going to wear that moniker just fine. I don't have a problem wearing that mantle. Fuck with your players. When you're experiencing burnout, intentionally fuck with your players. And when I say that, I don't mean try to lead them into a TPK. Do what is completely unexpected, that is going to get a reaction out of your players.
Well, you had touched on this earlier about the whole opposites thing. If the players expect X, you shoot them with A. Hit them with, no, this guy's not looking to take your shit. He's going to help you and give you a bunch of shit. But you need to take it up to, turn it to 11. You need to do it in such a way the players can't avoid whatever it is you're doing to fuck with them. You need to make it blatantly obvious that you've just reversed the script on them to force them to react. Because that's the part here that's the interesting aspect, is if you're suffering burnout, you need that reaction from the players to cause that to shake up and go a different direction. If you don't get that, if you set it up for a reaction and then they turn left and never even hit it, you fail to achieve it. So
I'm saying not anything so grandiose. When I say fuck with the players, I mean, if they're expecting a challenge from a social conflict and they're going to go and start to role play and you see them start to reach for their dice to make a persuasion roll, just go, oh, that's a wonderful idea. I agree completely. As your NPC, like, wait, I don't have to roll? Oh, no, he's totally on board. He is picking up what you're laying down. He's on board. Yeah, absolutely. If your players know that you are in love with dwarves in your fantasy world, have them encounter a tavern, no dwarves. There's no dwarves anywhere. Wait, I'm looking at this town. Dwarves. I asked people, what happened to the dwarves? They got, beg your pardon, the what? Dwarves. I've never heard that term before. What is a dwarf? Short. They're angry with axes and
they all have beards.
What is this dwarf of which you speak? Just because that's what I'm talking, like, mind fuck your players every once in a while in the games.
It's like, wait, you killed Steve the Lich. He was our only tourist attraction.
Right. Or Jared loves dwarves. I know this because I've been playing with him for 3 years. It would be like me having a zombie apocalypse game and a session, no zombies. What? Yeah, there's not a zombie to be seen. Well, I'm going to go out in the woods looking for zombies. Yeah, you don't find any. There's none. Okay, well, I'm going to ask the survivors in this camp about zombies. And they're going to go, what now? I know the world with the shit. What is this thing you're talking about? The living dead? I have no idea what you're talking about. Like that kind of like just mind fuck. Just mind fuck your players and sit back and kind of enjoy the dog head tilt of what
the fuck did he just say?
Oh man.
Or introduce an 8-year-old who has like a D12 in fighting, improved martial arts, and can just whoop their fucking asses just out of nowhere.
Well,
oh my God.
Avoid the TPK response as much as you can, unless you have a conversation with your players and they agree it's time to bring this to burn it down. They've all hit burnout too. Then absolutely run a Chickens in the Mist. This is set out from the beginning to be a TPK. Everyone's goal is to kill their character in the most fabulous way into night session. And have the fun of just a no fucks given, everyone's out to kill themselves and everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. If you're gonna shut it down Quentin Tarantino style. Just go big cinema with it. Tell them,
war dogs.
Yeah. Okay, look, the first person to die gets 10 experience points to build their next character with the experience points they've already got. What? Yeah, the second the person to die gets 5 XP.
And it can't be suicide.
Right. The third person to die starts at 5 XP less than they currently have, and so on and so forth in increments of 5 XP. 1, 2, 3, go.
Cinematic death.
Yeah, I intend this to be the final session.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, I think we have sufficiently beat this horse. This horse dead. It is now glue and dog food. So, until next time, unless anybody's got anything else in the chat room worth mentioning, in the live feed.
Not that I'm seeing. Looks like we've kind of hit everything people have brought up.
I think we've explored the topic thoroughly. I mean, from every angle as well, too. I don't think we left any stone really unturned.
It sounded like Dustin had something to add.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, sometimes if you're really not feeling the adventures and you really want to like step out, get an adventure from somewhere else. Like Savage Traveler posted that the opposite happens a lot in Traveler. When I ran a couple of Star Wars one-shots, I used Interface 0 and I used the Traveler Adventures. So don't be afraid to actually pick up adventures, because here's how you're going to keep yourself interested. You're going to tinker with it. You're going to be like, well, what from the bestiary should I use to represent a Wookiee? How do I get a Mirelurk if I'm going to play Fallout? Can robots be built off of people? If we're going to do Elder Scrolls, do I just make everybody people, or do I break out the fantasy companion? You're going to have fun tinkering, and you're going to have fun thinking, well, this would be great, but it doesn't go here. So that'll like get some of those gears going. That's just my little final 2 cents.
Yeah, drop yourself a challenge every once in a while to, hey, how could we play Robot Jocks with Savage Worlds? How can I run My Little Pony with Savage Worlds? And then commit to it full-fledged and figure out all the things you'd have to tweak to be able to run that.
You guys did your whole Pathfinder playthrough, and that was good.
That was just to prove a point.
But still, you didn't get
just to prove a point.
I think that was as much spite towards the internet as anything else.
You know what?
Well, no, Savage Worlds can't play D&D. Okay, all right. Rise of the Rune Lords played with Savage Worlds core rules. Here we go.
Survival is nothing more except spite against a universe that is trying to kill you.
And on that note, until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Dustin the Intern and Dave the Rules Maven. Scott, no, you may not have a cookie.
Accepted, bitches.
And until next time, keep rolling, stay savage.